All right, let's set the scene. The year is 1899. The American frontier, that wild, untamed West you've heard about, it's pretty much gone. Civilization is closing in with its railroads and its laws, and it's squeezing out the old ways. The age of the outlaw, well, it's dying. And right in the middle of all that chaos is Arthur Morgan, a man whose story is going to make us ask a really big question.
Yeah, that one. Before we get into all the heists and the gunfights, we've got to start here. Because Arthur's journey isn't just about trying to survive. It's about what a person does when they know for a fact their time is up. What does it actually mean to look back on a bad life and try to find some kind of redemption?
I mean, listen to that. That was the code. The big idea sold by the Vanderlinde gang's leader, the one and only Dutch. They weren't just criminals, see? No. They were a family of idealists fighting for freedom against a world that had gone sour. And this myth was the foundation of Arthur Morgan's entire life.
And Arthur wasn't just some guy in the gang. He was its heart. He was the one who made the myth feel real. He was its most loyal, most capable, and most dangerous enforcer.
You have to understand, Dutch basically raised Arthur. So for him, the gang wasn't a job, it was everything. His entire identity was wrapped up in Dutch's vision of freedom. He was the muscle, the provider, the true believer. That loyalty, that's what defined him.
But what happens when the one thing that defines you starts to feel like a lie? Because that bedrock of loyalty, well, it's about to crack. The whole romantic dream is about to turn into a nightmare.
And man, once things start to fall apart, they fall apart fast. It all kicks off with that botched job in Blackwater which sends them running. Then, bam, young Sean gets killed in an ambush. But the real gut punch, that comes in St. Denis. The gang loses its soul. Hosea, Dutch's conscience and oldest friend, is gone. And Lenny, a kid with a bright future, is gunned down. Every failure, every death, it's another crack in the foundation of the family.
And you can just imagine the conflict brewing inside Arthur. Dutch is promising freedom, but all they do is run. He preaches loyalty, but he starts sacrificing his own people. That noble philosophy is curdling into straight-up paranoia. And that famous line, "one last score," just becomes a lie they tell themselves over and over again. Arthur is stuck between the hero who raised him and the monster he's becoming.
So the gang is rotting from the inside out. But the thing that truly pushes Arthur to his breaking point, it doesn't come from a bullet. It's something way quieter and way more deadly.
I mean, really think about it. Is it one big, heroic moment, a sudden epiphany? Or is it something that you're forced into, something you just can't escape?
You know, it's funny. The single most important moment in Arthur Morgan's life wasn't a dramatic standoff. It was a grubby, forgettable little job collecting a few bucks from a poor, sick farmer. A small act of cruelty that would change absolutely everything.
And then comes the doctor's diagnosis: tuberculosis. It's a death sentence. And in that moment, for Arthur, the world just stops. The myth of the gang, of Dutch, of himself, it all shatters. Because now there's a clock ticking. And for the very first time, he has to look back at the man he was and decide who he's going to be with the time he has left. He doesn't change because he wants to be a hero. He changes because he's running out of time. So, with death staring him right in the face, Arthur stops just talking about being better. He starts doing better. His redemption isn't something he asks for, it's something he earns, deed by deed. And this right here, this is the core of it. Arthur's story isn't about becoming a good man. It's about finally realizing you've been a bad one, accepting that you can't undo it, but choosing, right now, to do something different anyway. And you can literally see him making these choices. First, he throws out the loan shark, Strauss, ending the very practice that sealed his own fate. Then he goes against Dutch's own schemes to help the Wapiti tribe, simply because it's the right thing to do. And then the biggest break of all, he openly defies Dutch to go rescue John Marston from prison. He chooses his brother over his father. Every step is a deliberate move away from his past, all to build a future for someone else.
Which brings us to the end. Arthur's own ending becomes this perfect, tragic reflection of a much bigger story, the final, dying breath of the Wild West.
You see, Arthur is the last of a dying breed. The whole gang is. They're basically ghosts from a bygone era, and the modern world is closing in. Their collapse isn't just about betrayal. It's because they're obsolete. They're dinosaurs. Arthur's death isn't just the end of a man. It's the end of the myth of the outlaw.
And let's be absolutely clear. He couldn't take any of it back. He was a killer, an enforcer, a bad man.
and nothing was ever going to change those facts.
But what he could do was choose what to do with his final hours, and in that choice, he found a purpose his whole violent life never gave him.
So it all comes down to one last ugly confrontation on a mountaintop. Arthur finally exposes Micah as the rat. He begs Dutch, his father figure, to see the truth. And Dutch, completely broken, just walks away. He leaves Arthur to die. It's the final, devastating betrayal.
And with his last ounce of strength, after making sure John and his family had a chance to escape, Arthur finds a place on the mountainside. He doesn't win, he doesn't survive, but as he watches that final sunrise, he's at peace. His redemption was never about saving himself. It was about saving a future he would never get to see.
And that's the question his story leaves us chewing on. Does being redeemed mean you have to become a perfect person, that all your sins get washed away? Or is it maybe something simpler, and maybe a lot harder? Maybe it's just about facing the end with the full weight of your past and still finding the strength to make one last, good, unshaken choice.